Ever wondered what happens when you give up trying to get someone to notice you? You've been putting all of your effort and bending over backwards to get a glimpse of recognition from someone who hardly acknowledges your existence. But the real question is, what does it mean to have self-respect? Let me tell you that pursuing someone's approval isn't a sign of strength or influence. The more you beg for their attention, the more your dignity is violated. This is the truth you need to hear. The moment you give up, everything changes. When you stop chasing after people and stop pretending to be the person who is always looking for validation, you regain something far more valuable than their ephemeral approval: yourself. Instead of knocking on people's doors like a beggar, you realize that your value is independent of their recognition. Consider. And here's the twist. As soon as you remove yourself from the equation, people start to notice the space you leave behind. They sense the shift that it's no longer you who needs them. This means that you've pulled back. You're no longer clinging to their scraps or waiting for their attention. Instead, you stand firm knowing that your value doesn't depend on whether they see it or not. The real power now is that you have reclaimed your inner peace and sense of worth. Before we go deeper into how you can master this shift in your life, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below with the phrase, "I choose my worth." This is your moment to claim it. If this message resonates with you, make sure to hit the like button. It's them who start to feel your absence. The balance of power has changed, and suddenly they realize you're not the person they can easily dismiss anymore. Distribute this video and remember that you have the power. When you stop vying for attention from others, you enter the life you truly deserve. Live like a VIP. Have you ever considered how people treat beggars? Together, we're creating a community that values self-respect, inner peace, and strength. Let's keep moving forward on this journey, one stoic principle at a time. No one respects a beggar, that much is true. So let me ask you, why are you begging and fighting for their attention? And why do you think they will treat you any differently? You are lowering yourself, waiting for scraps of attention, hoping to win just a moment of their time, and that's something you will never get this way, my friends, not by being the beggar. The truth is, when you chase someone like that, you're giving them all the power. You're telling them that you don't value yourself enough to walk away, that you're willing to sacrifice your dignity. Works for attention only pushes them further away, because no one is drawn to desperation. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you decide you're done, begging and fighting for their approval? That's when everything changes suddenly. You're not the beggar anymore. You've become the VIP. You hold your head high knowing your worth, and you start acting like someone who doesn't need anyone else's validation. And here's the key. People will notice. They'll see that shift in you, and instead of taking you for granted, they'll start wondering how they can earn your time and attention. So what does it mean to operate like a VIP? Picture a VIP at an exclusive event. They don't chase people around hoping for a conversation. They sit confidently. They command the room with their presence, and others naturally gravitate towards them. That's because a VIP knows they don't need to prove themselves. Their value is intrinsic, and they're selective with who they allow into their space. Now take that mindset and apply it to your relationships. If you've been chasing someone, texting them, constantly bending over backwards to get their attention, it's time to stop. VIPs don't fight for attention. They attract it by knowing their worth. You're not available at their convenience anymore. You're not going to jump when they give you a sliver of their time. Instead, you start focusing on yourself. You invest in your objectives, your interests, and personal development. When you live like a VIP, you surround yourself with exciting things that make you feel confident and alive. It's human nature for people to want what they can't easily have. And now that you've demonstrated to the world that you are whole on your own, you're drawing people in with your magnetic energy and attraction, because nothing is more attractive than someone who doesn't require outside validation to feel whole. When you stop pleading for their attention, something amazing happens. The distance you create allows them to miss you because you're no longer there constantly, so they begin to feel the absence of your presence. If you wait outside their door for them to open it, they won't ever ask you where you are. However, as soon as you stop knocking, they will start looking out the window to see if you've moved. They'll wonder why you've pulled back, and this curiosity often turns into attraction as they start to realize how valuable you are. I understand that it's difficult to act like a VIP overnight, particularly if you've been pursuing someone or feeling like you're at their mercy. It may seem strange at first, and you may even worry that you won't be able to get your wish to lose them completely, but this is the point where you need to remind yourself of today's mantra. I am not a doormat. Say it again and again until you believe it. Operating like a VIP means respecting yourself enough to let go of those who don't value you. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't tied to someone else's approval. It's about trusting that when you stop fighting for their attention, the right people, the ones who truly see your value, will come to you. After you stop operating like a doormat and start behaving like a VIP, you'll notice something amazing. That person who used to treat you like an option, they'll start to realize what they're missing. Suddenly, you're no longer the one waiting around for their time. Now there are the ones thinking about how to get back into your good graces. But here's the beauty of it: by the time they realize it, you may not even care anymore. You found your power, your self-worth, and now you've set the standard for how you expect to be treated. Whether they step up or not becomes irrelevant, because you have already won. This is just the first step in your transformation. Now that you've decided to operate like a VIP, you're not only changing how you see yourself, but also how others see you in the next step. We're going to talk about disrupting their expectations, how to surprise them by flipping the script and making them see you in a whole new light. And folks, if you've got any questions or a different point of view, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if everything is crystal clear and this video really hits home for you, then go ahead and smash that like button if you have not already, and stay with me, because this journey is about rewriting the story of your relationships, and it's only just beginning. You are not a doormat. You are a force. Number 2. Disrupt their expectations. Now that you're functioning like a VIP, it's time to turn things up even further. You've been following their rules, haven't you? You've always been accommodating, reliable, and always there when they need you, but guess what? That ends today. The next step in your transformation is all about upending their expectations. When people get used to you acting in a certain way, for example, by always saying yes or taking the initiative, they begin to take you for granted. However, when you reverse the script and cease being predictable, that's when they'll start to notice that, although predictable is dull and reassuring, someone who anticipates your every move won't find you challenging. And let's face it, it's boring to chase after someone who is simple to understand. People are drawn in by a little mystery and unpredictability. They need to feel as though they can't entirely predict everything you do. So how can you surprise them? Start doing the opposite of what they've come to expect from you. If you're always the one initiating contact, stop. Let them wonder where you've gone. If you've always been the one to bend over backward for their schedule, start prioritizing your time. Instead, it's about breaking the old patterns and making them see you in a completely new light. Imagine someone who's always counted on you to answer their texts right away. They're used to you being instantly available. Now suddenly you don't respond immediately. In fact, you don't respond for hours or even days. At first they might be confused, maybe even annoyed, but then they'll start wondering what you're up to, why you've changed, and most importantly, whether they've lost you. That's the moment when their interest spikes, because you're no longer the person they had in their back pocket. Disrupting their expectations means flipping the script on the entire dynamic. If they're used to you constantly being there chasing after them, you pull back. If they've been treating you like a fallback option, you start acting like you have 100 other options, because you do. This is where you show them that you're not someone who waits around for breadcrumbs of attention. You're someone who demands respect. Let's say you've been trying to attract someone who's been distant or giving you mixed signals. Instead of reacting with frustration or desperation, you go silent. You stop engaging with their half-hearted efforts and start focusing on yourself. What happens next? They'll start questioning everything. Why aren't you reacting the way you used to? Why aren't you fighting for their attention? They'll start to feel the power shift, and suddenly you're the one who's in control. When you disrupt their expectations, you create a new energy around yourself. This isn't about playing games or manipulating them. It's about showing them that you're not someone they can predict, control, or take for granted. You're showing them that if they want to be in your life, they need to work for it. This shift creates curiosity. Ultimately, intrigue and attraction might be considered in this way. If a reader can anticipate every plot twist in a book, they will eventually grow bored and put it down. But if the book keeps surprising them with unexpected turns, they won't be able to put it down. If you're that book, you need to keep them guessing and make them wonder what will happen next. That's where the true allure develops. People don't value what they believe they can have forever, but when there's ambiguity and they don't know where they stand with you, that's when their emotions become more intense, upsetting their expectations and creating just the right amount of uncertainty for them to realize they can't take you for granted any longer. They'll start thinking, wait, I thought I had them all figured out, that I knew where they stood. But now they're not so sure, and that's when they start reaching out more, trying harder, realizing that they don't have you on lock. I know what you're thinking, though. What if upsetting their expectations makes them uncomfortable? What if they get angry or stop talking to you? If someone stops talking to you because you don't cater to their every whim, then they were never worth your time in the first place. You deserve someone who respects you, who values your attention and effort, and if it feels awkward at first, that's just your old habits fighting back. This is the time you need to remember today's mantra. I am not a doormat. Disrupting their expectations might feel like a risk, but it's a risk worth taking because here's the truth. You have nothing to lose if they can't handle the shift, then they were never going to give you the respect you deserve anyway. And if they step up, then you've just set a new standard for how they treat you moving forward. After you disrupt their expectations, you'll notice a shift in how they treat you. They'll see you as someone who isn't easily controlled or predictable, someone who knows their worth and isn't afraid to demand it. You'll stop being their fallback, their option, and become someone they have to work to keep in their life now that we've shaken things up. It's time to dive into the next step, investing in the scarcity principle. If you thought disrupting their expectations was powerful, wait until you see what happens when you make yourself even harder to stay with me. Because this journey is just getting started, and the next move is going to take your transformation to a whole new level. You are not a doormat. You are someone who commands respect. It's about showing them that you're not someone they can predict, control, or take for granted. You're showing them that if they want to be in your life, they need to work for it. This shift creates curiosity. Consider it this way: curiosity and, in the end, attraction. If a reader can anticipate every plot twist in a book, they will eventually grow bored and put it down. But if the book keeps surprising them with unexpected turns, they won't be able to put it down. If you are that book, you need to keep them guessing and make them want to know what will happen next, because that's when real attraction develops. People don't value what they believe they can always have, but their feelings become more intense when there is uncertainty, and they don't know where they stand with you. They'll start reaching out more and trying harder because they've realized they don't have you on lock like they thought. I know what you're thinking. What if disrupting their expectations feels uncomfortable? What if they get mad at you or pull away? Listen, if someone pulls away just because you're not catering to their every whim, then they were never worth your time to begin with. If it feels uncomfortable at first, that's just your old habits fighting back. This is the moment you need to remind yourself of today's mantra. I'm not a doormat. I'm just challenging their expectations. May seem risky, but it's a risk worth taking because in the end you have nothing to lose. If they can't handle the change, they never will treat you with the respect you deserve, and if they do, you've just established a new standard for how they treat you going forward. After you challenge their expectations, you'll notice a change in how they treat you. They'll see you as someone who isn't easily controlled or predictable, someone who knows their worth and isn't afraid to demand it. You'll cease being their go-to option and instead become someone they have to work to keep in their lives. Putting money into the theory of scarcity. The next step will take your transformation to a whole new level. You are not a doormat. Rather, you are someone who commands respect. Invest in the scarcity principle. Now that you've started acting like a VIP and have disrupted their expectations, it's time to take things to the next level. If you thought upsetting their expectations was powerful, wait until you see what happens when you make yourself even harder to get stay with me. Greetings and welcome to the principle of scarcity. This is one of your most potent tools, and this is why people value. What is difficult to obtain is that people value you less the more accessible you are. Yet, as you begin to become scarce, they begin to see the true value of your time and attention. Let's break it down if something is always. People tend to undervalue things within reach because they believe that everything is commonplace. However, when something becomes rarer or more difficult to obtain, it becomes more valuable. Consider rare gemstones, limited edition items, or even concert tickets to a sold-out show. People become obsessed with these items because they know that not everyone can own them. The scarcity theory is applicable to you in relationships as well, so tell me how you simply implement it in your life. If you're always the one who texts first, shows up, makes the effort, etc., people will start to expect it from you and will stop appreciating it. However, when you pull back, stop being there for them and stop answering your phone, they'll start to notice and wonder why you've become more distant, why your time is no longer easily accessible, and that's when the shift occurs. It's about quality over quantity. Your time and attention are valuable, and when you treat people that way, others will too. Let them come to you rather than always being the one to fit into your schedule. This will teach them to value your time before it's gone. The saying, "Absence makes the heart grow fonder," is true. When you're not there all the time, people start to miss you and realize that they can't take your presence in their lives for granted. The irony is that the more you apply the scarcity principle, the more they will want you around. It may seem paradoxical, but when you withdraw, they will begin to crave your attention even more. Consider this. Imagine someone who used to be available 24/7, always willing to drop everything for you. Nice, but after a while, it gets old. Now imagine that same person suddenly becomes more difficult to get in touch with. They're not available to you anymore. Suddenly their time appears more valuable and precious, and you start to wonder whether you took them for granted and why they're not as available as they once were. That's precisely what occurs when you apply the principle of scarcity. You make room for people to see how valuable you really are, despite what you may be thinking. Just playing games, absolutely not. The scarcity principle isn't about manipulation. It's about setting boundaries and reinforcing your value. If someone can only respect your time and attention when they feel like it's scarce, that's a reflection on how they've been treating you. The goal isn't to play hard to get. It's to show them that you are not always going to be there waiting for them to throw you a bone. You're teaching them that if they want your attention, they need to step up and earn it. When you start implementing the scarcity principle, they'll notice a shift in their behavior. They'll start reaching out more, trying harder, and putting in the effort they never gave before. Why? Because they'll realize that your attention isn't something they can count on anymore. It's something they need to work for. This doesn't mean you completely disappear or cut them off. It means you become selective with your time. You focus on what's important to you, and you make them understand that your attention is a privilege, not a guarantee. Imagine you're trying to attract someone new, but they've been distant. You've been chasing, reaching out, trying to make plans. Now it's time to stop. You pull back. You invest in yourself, in your goals, in your passions. You let them feel your absence, and when they do reach out, you don't rush to respond. You take your time because you're no longer desperate for their attention. You're teaching them that your time is valuable, and if they want a part of it, they need to start putting in the effort. Now that you've invested in the scarcity principle, you're in control. You've shifted the power dynamic, and they're starting to see your true worth. But we're not done yet. Next, we're going to talk about how to reverse the script, how to turn the tables completely and make them chase you. Stay with me because this transformation journey is just getting started, and you're about to see just how powerful you really are. 4. Reverse the script. After acting like a VIP and upsetting their expectations while investing in the scarcity principle, now is the time to do just that. Previously, you were the one who was always pursuing them, practically begging for their attention, but this is no longer the case because you've altered the dynamic and gained control. It's time to completely change the situation so that they must now pursue you. Reversing the script means you're no longer the one trying to prove your worth. You're making them prove theirs. You've shown them that your attention isn't something to take lightly, and now they're left wondering how to get it back. When you stop chasing, they start noticing the space you've left behind. This isn't about disappearing or playing hard to get. It's about showing them that you're not going to fight for attention from someone who doesn't value you. They need to feel the absence of your presence at first. They were used to you being there at the drop of a hat, always responding instantly, always eager to make plans. But now suddenly you're not. You're no longer easy to reach. You're not initiating contact, and you've stopped bending over backwards for them. This shift creates a void, and people don't like voids. They'll start wondering where you went, why you've pulled back, and how they can regain your attention. This is the perfect moment to reverse the script, because now they're feeling the uncertainty. You once felt they're questioning where they stand with you, just like you used to question where you stood with them. When you reverse the script, they're now the ones putting in the effort, and the tables have turned. Think of it like a game of chess. At first they were calling all the shots and you were reacting to their moves, but now you're 2 steps ahead. You're no longer reacting, you're strategizing. You control the board and they're scrambling to figure out your next move. Maybe they send a casual message expecting an immediate reply, but this time you don't rush to respond. You take your time. And when you do, it's calm, collected. And on your terms, you're showing them that your time is valuable, and you're no longer playing their games. Playing the script also means returning the attention to yourself. You are no longer focused on their needs, wants, or acceptance. Rather, you are concentrated on what you deserve and want. You have ceased wasting your energy and started focusing it on your own life and your objectives. Your passions, your happiness, you're no longer living in reaction to them but in pursuit of your own fulfillment. Here's the kicker. Once they see that your world no longer revolves around them, they'll realize what they've lost. They'll wonder how they now fit into your life. And that's when to chase you. Reversing the script means they're no longer getting your attention for free. Now, if they want to be part of your life, they have to earn it. You've made yourself a VIP, and access to you is no longer automatic. This means that when they reach out, you don't always say yes right away. They need to prove they're worthy of your time and attention. You might be wondering, what if I reverse the script and they don't chase me? Here's the truth. If they don't chase out after you when you pull back, they were never truly invested. That's a blessing. You're not looking for someone who sticks around when it's easy. You're looking for someone willing to work to be in your life. Reversing the script isn't about manipulating anyone. It's about setting the standard for how you deserve to be treated. If they can't meet that standard, then you know they're not worth your time. You deserve someone who respects your worth, not someone who takes it for. You're no longer the one chasing them, granted. The power dynamic has completely changed as a result of your script reversal, but we're not done yet. Next, we'll discuss how to turn silence into your superpower by exercising restraint to generate even more intrigue and attraction. Stay with me, though, because your journey is far from over. Number 5. Turn silence into your superpower. At this point in your transformation, you're no longer complying with their rules or facing them head-on. You've reversed the script, but what comes next is where things get really powerful. Silence. In a society where everyone rushes to fill stillness thinking it indicates something is wrong, silence is your greatest weapon. No, you're not letting it kill you. Rather, it's letting it develop your strength. Stillness produces mystery, intrigue, and most crucially, control. This is where you change. When you stop talking or acting, it compels the other person to think, and they begin to wonder why I haven't heard from them or if I did something wrong. The narrative silence doesn't indicate that something is wrong. Rather, it indicates that you are in control. It says, I don't need to defend myself, and I definitely don't need to fight for your attention. Your lack of response leaves a gap that they fill with doubt, leading them to pursue you. They assume that you've always been fast to reply and keep the discussion going, so when you become quiet and stop filling in the blanks, they'll notice and wonder why you're suddenly. Many people fear silence because they think it means they are losing someone. Yet quiet speaks louder than words, because it helps people realize how essential your attention is. Distant silence sows the seed of inquiry, and the more they think about it, the more they think about you. Silence also empowers you. It's a moment when you gather your strength, focus on yourself, and stop reacting to everything. You're not waiting anxiously for their response. Instead, you're growing more confident and in control. If you're trying to attract someone who has been distant and you pull back with silence, you're not playing games. You're creating space for them to miss you. Being silent is a sign of weakness. You've learned to use silence as your superpower, so the dynamic has changed. It's the ultimate display of strength, saying, "I know my worth, and I don't need to chase you." Ed entirely. You've made room for people to miss you, crave your attention, and recognize your value, but our conversation is far from over. Up next, we'll discuss making a list of things that aren't negotiable, how to establish limits with yourself and make sure that no one ever crosses them again. Stay with me, for this is just the beginning of your change. You are a force of nature, not a doormat, and quiet is only the beginning of your strength. The sixth, make a list that is not negotiable. It's time to assert your authority more firmly now that you've mastered the art of quiet and turned the tide. To do this, make a list of things that you won't compromise on. What items are not negotiable? It's a precise set of rules and guidelines that specify what you won't put up with in a friendship, love connection, or any other kind of relationship. Think of it as building a fortress around yourself. These non-negotiables are the walls that protect you from being walked all over. They're the rules that remind you and anyone who enters your life what you deserve the moment someone crosses those boundaries. You walk away, no questions asked, no excuses made without clear standards. This list is the cornerstone of your self-respect, and it guarantees that you'll never be treated like a doormat again. You're making yourself vulnerable to nasty manipulation and negative actions. If you don't explicitly state your boundaries, people will push you. Define them with a list of things that are non-negotiable. This establishes boundaries and says to the world, "This is what I will accept and nothing less." It's about not lowering your standards to keep someone around. If they can't meet these requirements, they don't deserve a place in your life. First, consider what is really important to you. What are the core values and behaviors that must exist in a relationship in order for you to feel respected and valued? These could be honesty, wherein neither truths nor lies are accepted, or consistency. Someone who is inconsistent with you is a warning sign. You should be treated with consistent, dependable attention, not by someone who simply shows up when it's convenient. Another thing is that mutual effort is something you're not putting in at work. Relationships at work are two-way streets, and if someone isn't putting in their fair share, you don't have to put up with them. Once you've made your list, it's imperative that you stand up for those non-negotiables without taking offense. If someone crosses the line, don't let it go. Don't make excuses for them, or hope they'll change. Cut them off because you deserve better. For example, if someone consistently cancels plans at the last minute, leaving you hanging, one of your non-negotiables is consistency and respect for your time. If you walk away, sending a strong message, refuse to accept their excuses or lower your standards. When you adhere to your non-negotiables, you won't accept being treated as an option. Amazingly, you stop wasting time on people who don't respect you and make room for those who do. You'll draw in people who are prepared to live up to your standards because they realize you won't compromise them for anyone. It's not being rigid or demanding to have a non-negotiable list. Rather, it's a statement of self-worth that says, "I deserve to be treated with respect, and I won't accept anything less." When you live up to that standard, others will either have to rise to the occasion or leave. We're not done yet. We'll talk about building your emotional vault next. This will teach you how to safeguard your emotional energy and make sure that only the right people have access to your inner world. Stay with me, because this transformation journey is about to get even deeper. You are not a doormat. Rather, you are someone who demands and receives respect. Number 7. Now that you've created your non-negotiable list, you've laid the groundwork for a life where your boundaries are respected and your worth is never questioned. Construct your emotional vault. Now that you've established your standards for behavior from others and made your list of non-negotiables, it's time to go one step further and construct your emotional vault. What does that mean? It means guarding your innermost feelings and determining who should have access to your most private information. In other words, this vault isn't about keeping people out. Rather, it's about setting up boundaries that keep you safe from those who would prey on your weaknesses. Consider your feelings as valuables kept in a vault. You wouldn't want to give just anybody the key to that vault, would you? Building your emotional vault means being selective. It means taking your time before opening up. The same is true for your heart and mind. Too often we give people access to our emotions before they have earned that trust. We overshare, overinvest, and before we know it, we're left feeling drained because the wrong people had access to the most important parts of us. You look at you, see who is genuinely there for you, and determine whether they are worthy of your trust. If someone consistently crosses your boundaries, they will not be granted access to your emotional vault. If someone is inconsistent or only shows up when it is convenient for them, they will not be granted access to your deeper thoughts and feelings. Imagine someone who flirts with you on a regular basis but never truly commits. They send mixed signals, leaving you unsure of where you stand. Rather than opening your emotional vault and pouring out your emotions, hold back and keep that vault closed until their actions demonstrate that they are worthy of your trust. If they are serious, they will step up. If not, you have spared yourself needless suffering. The idea here is not to be cold or distant, but rather to acknowledge that your emotions are valuable, and not everyone should have access to them. Now that your emotional safe has been secured, let's move on to the next level. Next, we'll discuss how to embody the pivot, which is the skill of skillfully adjusting your focus and power in any circumstance. Stay with me, for this is far from finished. You are not a doormat. Rather, you are someone who, with strength and discernment, controls access to your emotional world. Now that you have constructed your emotional vault and safeguarded your energy, you are number 8. Embody the pivot. It's time to learn how to elegantly change your attention and power in every circumstance by being an embodiment of the pivot. When something isn't working for you, the pivot is your ability to adjust and change course without losing your balance. For example, let's say you're focusing on someone who has been distant or isn't treating you with respect. Instead of holding on to hope that they will change, you pivot and stop wasting energy on them, refocusing on yourself, your goals, and the things that really matter. The power of the pivot lies in knowing when to let go and when to change course. When you embody the pivot, you show strength and aren't rigidly attached to an outcome or someone else's validation. If they're not stepping up, you pivot away from them and toward your own growth and happiness. It's the ultimate move of self-respect. It's about not letting any person or situation keep you stuck. Embracing the pivot means not being afraid to change course, walk away, or redirect your energy. As you learn how to pivot, you'll begin to see the power in letting go. Next, we'll talk about owning your exit. Imagine a basketball player who, when blocked from making a shot, pivots. They change direction without hesitation, always ready to make a new play in your life. You are not a doormat. Rather, you are someone who understands when to pivot and recover your power. Number 9. Learn how to confidently leave settings that no longer serve you, and why it's one of the strongest moves you can make. Stay with me as your transformation is about to reach its pinnacle. Own your exit. Now that you've perfected the pivot, let's discuss the most effective step you can take to make your leave. The ability to walk out of any situation that no longer serves you, whether it be a poisonous connection, relationship, or work that is draining your soul, is known as owning your exit. This doesn't mean leaving in a state of rage or frustration, but rather departing with dignity, power, and lucidity when you are the owner of your departure. This is the ultimate act of self-respect. Imagine it as closing a chapter in a book rather than tearing out pages or throwing the book away. You're saying that you know your worth and that you refuse to stay where you're not valued. You're not waiting for someone else to make the decision for you. You're taking charge of your life and choosing to walk away on your terms. You're merely choosing to let go since the narrative no longer fits with your direction. You go with dignity and a strong sense of accomplishment, understanding that leaving isn't a loss but rather a wise decision to safeguard your tranquility going forward. Now that you've learned to own your exit, you've completed the last step in this transformation journey. You've reclaimed your power, set your boundaries, and demonstrated that you are someone who walks away with strength, dignity, and purpose. Owning your exit is about confidence, knowing when enough is enough, and refusing to stay in a place where you're not appreciated. The beauty of it is that when you leave like this, those who took you for granted will feel the void you leave behind. Congratulations, you've made it to the end of this transformation journey. If you followed these steps, you're no longer the person chasing after someone's approval setting for less or being treated like a doormat. You've stepped into your power, set your boundaries, and taking control of your life. Now it's your time to shine. But before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. If you've reached this far, let me know by dropping a keep it up in the comments below. This is your declaration that you're serious about changing your life and that you're ready to continue this journey of empowerment and self-respect. Also, don't forget to hit that like button if this video resonated with you, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Together, we can help others stop settling and start demanding the respect they deserve. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. There's so much more coming to help you elevate your mindset, relationships, and life. You've come this far, and I'm proud of the work you're doing. Keep it up.